I'm Salona Carlisle, and this is another edition of the Everyday Bliss for the Modern Woman weekly transmissions, created for the woman who is wildly devoted to choosing herself and living her desired life now instead of waiting until later. What's often overlooked is the fact that why you want what you want is actually so much more important than what you want. And it's equally important to get to know the parts of you that don't want it. When we identify a desire that we want to go after, our tendency is to start to focus on what needs to happen out there in order to create it, in order to get it, in order to make it happen. We want to know how to close the gap between where we are and where we want to be as quickly as possible. So much so that we completely overlook and try to skip over our inner world, which is actually what is running the show under the surface in the first place. The women who come to work with me are often so close to reaching the very end of their rope. They're riddled with frustration that despite all the work they've done, their desires continue to elude them. And they've been hitting up against what feels like an immovable wall for years, and maybe even decades. For example, when it comes to attracting a new relationship, a new love, as much as they've been prioritizing their inner growth and consciously affirming their worthiness and their readiness for this to happen and opening themselves up to receive it, it only seems to keep feeling farther and farther away. While we may be consciously desiring and envisioning and affirming something new and different in our lives, if we're not experiencing it, then it's a really powerful opportunity to get even more curious about what within us is not actually available for it yet and still has some objection to it happening. Part of the work is to recognize that what you are currently experiencing is what a part of you wants to keep that way. Not because your desire isn't true and real and valid and gorgeous and beautiful, but because the status quo feels so much safer and so much more comfortable to your mind and to your nervous system than the unknown. And of course, all of your desires live in the unknown. This is why one of the biggest shifts I guide my clients through is closing the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Not through affirmations, vision boards, or hustling to rearrange outer circumstances to make things happen as fast as possible, but by diving more deeply than they ever have before into their inner world to discover what needs to truly shift in order for them to finally come into alignment with their desires and to allow themselves to actually receive and step into these experiences that they've been craving for so long. And it's in this way that the journey towards your desires becomes one of embodying more of your wholeness, more of your power, and more of your freedom to choose consciously towards the life and the manifestations that are calling you, rather than being driven by the old, outdated, unconscious patterns. The ones that are honestly so much more interested in keeping things the same, to keep you safe in the way they know how. Much more interested in that than in you expanding into more joy and more aliveness, and in allowing in more love and more pleasure. So the next time you feel confronted by this gap between where you are and where you ultimately long to be and wish you were, or the next time you feel that these desires you long for are feeling still just way out of reach, rather than seeing it as life being against you or some self-sabotage or a reason to get frustrated or in a fight with reality. Instead, create some space for a little more compassion for the parts of you that might be gripping for dear life to protect you, to keep you safe from something that feels unfamiliar and therefore threatening to the status quo. And then just know that the first gap that has to be closed is this inner alignment, this inner congruence, so that you can become that woman who receives and experiences and lives in to all those desires you've been saying you want. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more and receive my free ecstatic feminine embodiment meditation, go to salonacarlisle.com. I offer a variety of ways into this work, so if you know you want to dive deeper into living more everyday bliss and becoming that woman who is wildly devoted to living her desired life now instead of later, you can also request a free consult at salonacarlisle.com/discover. And together we can find the perfect way into this work for you.